Well, hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. Have you ever been in a situation that, from a human perspective, using human logic, makes sense one way, but you know that God would have something different for you? Maybe it's a moral decision, whether or not to do something that you know would profit you physically, but would also cause you to compromise your values. Maybe it's something else, who knows? Have you ever been in a situation like that, where human logic says yes, you know that God is saying no? Friends, people of God have found themselves in these kinds of situations ever since the very beginning. And in the Old Testament, in the book of Isaiah, we find the nation of Judah under the leadership of King Hezekiah facing the threat of the Assyrian army. This is a brutal army that swept across the Fertile Crescent, decimating nations and deporting them to all the nether regions of the world. And they're bad people, and they've been doing bad stuff. The Judaites have seen their northern brothers and sisters, the Israelites, swept up by that army. Of course, Israel rebelled against God, and it's part of God's judgment. But now here, Sennacherib, this king of Assyria, has come to the gates of Judah and have said, hey, we're going to wipe you out. And they sent an emissary, his name is Rabshakeh, to King Hezekiah, to the people of Judah, to say, hey, you need to surrender to us or else we're going to blast you. Okay? And I want you to listen to what Rabshakeh says to the people of Judah who are taking this all in. It says in verse 4 of Isaiah chapter 36, and the Rabshakeh said to them, say to Hezekiah, thus says the great king, the king of Assyria, on what do you rest this trust of yours? Do you think that mere words are strategy and power for war? In whom do you now trust that you have rebelled against me? Okay, here's this guy speaking for the king of Assyria, speaking for Sennacherib, saying, hey, you guys are trusting other things. You're trusting Egypt. You're trusting your God. You're thinking you got a plan, but you've got no plan for standing up against the power and the might of the Assyrian army. Listen to what he says in verse 13. He says, then Rabshakeh stood and called out in a loud voice in the language of Judah, hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. By the way, he's speaking in the language of Judah because he wants the common people to hear and to be afraid and to question God's provision. He says, hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Now, you need to know that Hezekiah was a God-fearing king of Judah. Hezekiah largely followed the Lord in his life. He says, don't let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord by saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, make your peace with me and come out to me. If you want to live, you better make a treaty. You better come out to me. He says, then each of one of you will eat of his own vine and each one of his own fig tree, and each one of you will drink the water of his own cistern until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Beware lest Hezekiah mislead you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. And then he says, has any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Rhetorically, he's asking, has any other God delivered their people? No. Will God deliver you? No. Your God will not deliver you either. This is the rationale he's making. And friends, he's got a lot from a human perspective to back it up. Again, Assyria was a vast army. They were terrible. They were powerful. They were ruthless. And they would sweep nations off of their feet and away and all of these things. But here's the thing. What the peace treaty entailed was the people of God saying, you know what? We're going to give up on God's provision. We're going to let go of what God has provided for us in the land, and we're going to save ourselves, and we're going to reject God. And that's the argument from a human perspective that this guy Rabshakeh is making on behalf of Sennacherib. Look, everything's stacked against you except your God. What are you going to do? And here's what's interesting. In verse 21 it says, and referring to the people of Jerusalem, it says, but they were silent, and they answered him not a word, for the king's command was, do not answer him. Now, we don't know at this point the rest of the story. We'll read about that in the days ahead. But friends, here's the challenge for us today. When everything's stacked against you, when logic tells you there's only one right answer here, but it doesn't make sense according to the things of God, what are you going to do? I love how the people respond. They had been trained well by Hezekiah, by the leadership there. It says they were silent. They answered him not a word, for the king's command was, don't answer him. Stay the course and wait for God. Friend, you might be in a situation that from a human perspective has everything screaming, hey, you need to do this or else. Trust God. Friend, trust God in the midst of that. Believe that what God says, God will do. That what God requires of you, God will provide for you. And that might mean at this point, wait. Just be silent. Just stop. Don't react. Don't respond. Just wait and pray and trust what the Lord will do. We're going to see that God is going to deliver the people of Judah. He'll deliver you too, friend. I don't know exactly how, I don't know exactly when or in what way, but our God is the God who delivers us. We can trust Him. Trust the Lord even when the logic doesn't make sense. Trust the Lord. He's the one who creates all things. He's the one in whom we can trust with all things. Friends, God bless you. Have a great day. And Lord willing, we'll see you again soon on the Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional.